Hello again. This is a question continuing where I left off. The real last question before we get into the analysis, the one that I forgot earlier, is got 148 responses. It was one of the first questions, and it was select what you are following currently. 89.9% of people are following the manga, 93.9% are following the anime, 25% of people and 25% of people are following the live action. Oh, and 0.7% of people, or one person, is following none of these. So I ask, why are you here? I'm very curious. What led you to the Mob Psycho 100 Reddit and then to take this survey? Or were you just answering that question like that to be funny? Well, regardless, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Maybe now you've started the series. Even if you haven't turned into a psycho yet. Alright, now on to analysis. And maybe a bit of background about how I designed this. Got bits and pieces of that during the first part of the first video. During the second part, we'll get a little more. Alright then. I said pretty much all there was about to say about this first question here. You can tell I'm obviously really terrible at computers. I prefer to do things with my hands. You might have also noticed all of the art that was in the survey. That was done by myself. And no, I don't think that my art is better than a lot of other people's, or particularly that good in any respect. Anyway, I think it's acceptable enough to be shared in some cases. In those cases I share it, and the only reason I used it in this survey to space out the questions was because it's a lot easier than going to ask permission from each individual artist whose work is something that's particularly jaw-dropping. Alright then. As for the gender, do you think gender is important question? I hope I mentioned before that 44% of people overall, excuse me, think that gender is not important. So in the end, most people on the subreddit think that gender is important. I don't really understand that, but hey, I can be in the minority, it's fine. Oh yeah, actually, there's something to bring up there. I didn't actually know a while ago. I can bring in my reasoning for this. I don't think it's important, and here's why. Maybe sex might be important because that can actually determine a couple of abilities sometimes, because it has a bigger effect on what you can do. Bigger. Not to say that it's a big effect, but bigger. Gender really doesn't do much. It has does a few very, very minor things in your brain that you can overcome in a couple of weeks of training. Aside from your things about your personality, it really doesn't influence what you do, what you like. Anyway, I didn't even believe it existed until a while back, until they proved in the brains of rats that it was possible that some of them had the configuration of that they had brain configuration of males and females in differing bodies, and that this changed over several stages of life. And so this probably happens in humans as well. So gender exists. But then again, the difference in brains between males and females it's practically nothing at all. And as for the something else category, still that region of life is, maybe you have a different opinion. I'd love to discuss this. It's so far separated. I have no idea what I am. I'd have to get a brain scan to know what gender I am, because how else are you supposed to know? What does it do? Anyway, 147. I said this was a flawed question before. And that was because I was coming at this from the idea of I'm a very strongly opinionated ageist, that when you look at a person, you should think of what they've been able to acquire and incorporate into themselves first, rather than judging what people usually are able to do for themselves by that point. And look at someone not as a blank slate, but as someone who's not filling themselves up, but someone who is trying to who's already pushing forward, but is pushing forward in new ways, thanks to being in the world for longer periods of time. And thanks to being in the world for longer periods of time, that gives a lot of people an advantage, but not necessarily is it the case that people who are been in the world for longer periods of time have more maturity. And also, if you say that it's a biological fact that when you're older, you're smarter, absolutely not the case. Even technically speaking, before we enter the toddlerhood, I'm not sure how you'd call it, the reason that it's harder for a younger person's brain to function at the age of, I think, 2 and below, it's because they have so many connections going off in their mind. There's so much knowledge going off within them, so much firing off at the same time, that it's just hard for them to pay attention, to focus on certain parts of information. So it's not that there's nothing going on in there, it's that it's not organized. And poetically, almost, the way that the mind becomes functional, more functional, I should say, it's not that it's completely not functional before, the way that the mind becomes more functional is by killing off a majority of the connections, severing connections between the majority of those synapses, and only the ones that go off the most remain. It's opportunity. Anyway, but this is a flawed question because age is not just about knowledge, and age is not just about being a person. And I came at it from that angle of anti-ageism. I hope I said that I was an anti-ageist at the front instead of a strong ageist, an anti-ageist. Anyway, I was coming at this from the perspective of an ageist because I asked such a broad question, age can be important according to other factors besides personhood and personality and being someone. So my answer would have to be depends, but rather than no strictly. But that's just because I had phrased the question in a way that made it unclear previously. And I'd like to know how all of you interpreted these questions before, because I realize that both of them are very, very broad. Probably could get a lot of good discussions out of that. And discussions are beautiful things. Ideas clashing, new ideas forming. It's wonderful. That's how progress gets made. Anyway. Back to funny things on the internet. Really surprised that 8 people came here for the first time to see this. Once again, it was wrong of me not to include an answer about what you are choosing not to follow currently. 65 people could not answer any part of that question, and so I'm not sure whether it's that some people just chose not to answer that question, or some people were technically answering that question by not answering it, since they are following all 3 forms of this series. That was a flaw with that question, but at most 65 people are following all 3 forms of Mob Psycho 100. Let's see. Sarazawa Katsuya, he's been coming up a lot. I wish I could talk more about him, but that would be manga spoilers. But really surprised me how popular he was, considering the amount that he does in the manga, even if he does become what he does become. Being as vague as possible, I'm very good at that. The person wearing a mask always is very good at being vague. Alright then. Also, I should bring up how this is going to work in the future. A lot of people got no votes at all. People like Mitsura, the person in charge of the Awakening Lab. Koyama got no votes. The person with the telekinetic helix going down his arm. Fukuda, the boy who was possessed by a Ripple's Gokiri. Those people got no votes. So unless I hear them come up in conversation a lot over the next year, they will be removed from the poll, while people who got at least 1 vote will remain for the next poll, such as Minagishi or Jonathan, so that way the answers will become more and more precise as the years go on. At least that's the hope. Like I said before, this is the 3rd to last annual survey. I say that because I know that this is a dead manga. There are no more updates for the manga. It's not certain whether or not there'll be a season 2 of the anime. If so, then that means that then the subreddit should stay alive for a long time, and there's a chance the manga will still be coming here. Especially if I share this poll information with Crunchyroll, that might help. So we can get at least 3 more years of good information, good fan interaction out of this subreddit. I hope, at least. Anyway. And I'm also really surprised that Mob was more popular than Reagan here. Although if the live-action version had anything to do with it, I'm not surprised at all. They turned him into way more of a scumbag there, although I'll leave that to you for you to decide. I talked more in depth about the terrible nature of how little female representation there is in the series in the first part of the video, so I'm going to leave that alone. Moving on. And I also talked about why it is that, that you can't, it's literally not possible to have a husbando or waifu that is younger than, at least in the United States, it's not possible to have a husbando or waifu that is younger than 18. That's the legal limit. Even if you want to call them your husbando or waifu, they aren't, because you can't be legally married to somebody that is younger than 18. That's just a name. They can be your girlfriend. Other people can call you weird for it. They can be your girlfriend and you can get sent to prison for it. And it's possible to do all of those things, but you literally cannot be married to them because it's a legal procedure. Anyway. I talked about the shipping before, the issue with mom. Oh, and also I will be addressing the input that I got at the end of the quiz, right at the end of the video, and hopefully I won't accidentally end the recording again. Let's see. I'm a little bit upset at the lack of variety people put for the cult question. 30% for Lord Psycho Helmet? I mean, hurrah for Lord Psycho Helmet. All hail Lord Psycho Helmet. But at the same time, a lot of options there. A lot of options. Oh, there's another page on the back. Oh yeah, and was the dub really that bad? They did a lot of creative things with the dub. Reagan especially, I think he did an amazing job. Christopher Niosi. Of course, the sub was great too. The person playing Reagan there is a long-standing voice actor who's had a big history in the industry, but it's really surprising that even if you include the people who say they can't really decide, only 25% of people prefer the dub over the sub. It's particularly since on the Blu-ray edition of Mob Psycho 100, when you just press play, the dub is what comes up. If you want to listen to the sub on the Blu-ray, you actually have to, every time you put the disc in, you have to go into the menu and turn the sub on before you play the disc. Actually, you have to go into the menu, turn the subtitles on, and turn the Japanese voices on. You have to do both of those things, and then play the DVD, or else it'll just play the dub. Oh, something I forgot to bring up earlier about the age question, whether or not you think age is important. Something else there is that I divided it rather than what people usually do, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 25 to 30, etc., etc. I tried to divide it more along stages of life, since 8 to 14, you're entering your teenage years, you're getting out of middle school, getting ready to get into high school. It's what Mob is going through, entering puberty. There was one person who admitted to being that age, between 8 and 14. I hope that you're enjoying the series. It's interesting to have a protagonist that's your age if it's really representative of the issues that you're facing. Obviously, clearly, it's representative of some issues that a lot of other people are facing. I know that I've cried a bunch, even if I've been going through college a lot. That's embarrassing to say I've been going to college a lot. You think if you've been going to college a lot, you could come up with a better sentence. I suppose it's what you're studying for that matters. Regardless. Anyway. So, for example, 19 to 25, 19 to 24, 25, transition into your 20s, into adulthood, drinking age, being ability to be drafted, ability to be married, 25 forward, ability to be married, 45 plus, up to 45, midlife crisis age, getting ready to go over the hill. I think that's pretty accurate. Hitting the 30s is a big mark for everyone. I think that maybe that's where more of a midlife crisis would happen, because honestly, when I think of the golden years, where I would want to stop aging, it would be 31, 32 at most. That's where your body really starts to get old. your body stops puberty at 25. That's when your brain stops developing a certain way, and then the puberty way, your body stops developing earlier, but your brain continues to go through puberty until 25, and then I'd say that your body can starts to get old. You're a perfect adult. Well, you can be at your physical peak until around 30 or 40, and that's when, unless you're very careful, a whole bunch of things can go wrong. So that's how I divided up the ages instead of just by even fives. Because biology doesn't work in even fives. Cells are circles, not squares. Even plant cells, they're not squares, they're weird wiggly waggly shapes. Alright. Mogami arc, Holy Tree arc. Don't think there's really anything interesting to bring up. Oh yes, apathetic. I mentioned before, but you can extrapolate from the what is your favorite and your second favorite arc questions what people are most apathetic about. But that is not the same thing as what is your least favorite. That would be a question for the next arc, because there's a difference between not caring about something, so it just naturally ends up at the bottom, and then choosing to dislike something so that you push it there. So it's clear that these things are what people are apathetic about, because I didn't even ask them to think about it and they just naturally fell there. But if I ask people what they don't like, then chances are something else would appear here. That'd actually be an interesting experiment for the next survey, eh? Alright. American comedy, less than 5. My sincere apologies for the spoilers in one of those questions. Once again, something related to this smiling snot ball over here. Oh yes, and about the question that 120 of you, 23 of you kindly chose to answer, about what, if you had to, you would take out of the series. A lot of this is to once again get a tap on the community and feel it out. And by asking what you would have to chop off, I was starting to go into this big analogy about if the series as a body, all of it is important, but if you had to remove a limb or maybe a kidney, it gets a little more dicey when you go to internal organs. But if you had to remove a limb, then boy, it's late at night. You start to think about what you really, really, really care about and what is just there, and so what you really gravitate towards, and so what makes people really love the series. Because, of course, all of these things are important. They build up to the whole, what's at the center of the series. And what's at the center of the series for me might be one thing. What's at the center of the series for Soho and Hee-Ham and whatever might be something else. My apologies for Soho and Hee-Ham if they're watching this. But using these sorts of questions, we can tell what it is for the majority. Even what the center of the series is for one himself really isn't valid for what's true of the real entity of the series, because after he puts it down in paper and goes out to us, he doesn't control it anymore. Of course, he has a bit more say about what's in the world and the lore than the average person, since he invented it and he had an idea of what was being put out in the first place. But the way that it's the fans that make a series run, it's with us that it lives in our hearts. Anyway, now finally, to see if I can respond to your comments that you left at the bottom of the survey. I asked for comments on the subreddit as well, where I initially posed this, and there weren't that many responses. Besides that, the one common thread that the questions were too long. I've addressed that many times. I'll address it again. shortly. And what was it? Oh, I'll just move on. Oh yes, if this does end up closing out the video, then I hope that you all have a lovely night. In that case, I just won't bother restarting, and I'll make a comment in the. I'll go into the comment section / the it would be the comment section in either case, in order to properly respond to all of the. Okay, still recording. Still recording. Things that you had to say. Aha! We're still golden. Okay. I accidentally hit the X button. But if so far it hasn't closed, that means it should still remain open. Oh, I tell ya. Electric technology was made by warlocks. Beyond me. For those who can deal with this sort of thing, you have my praise. Alright, clicking on the responses tab. Part of the reason that this is late is because I've been looking for a job, among other things. And another reason that this is a couple of days late is because I wanted to get the text version of this out, and I was trying to figure out how to post the text version of this, because I knew that the video wouldn't be the most popular option. Alright. Alright, response number 1. Still recording. Let's see if I can organize this so that I can read and see what is being recorded at the same time. Ho ho ho. Aha. Lovely. Response number 1. It's freezing up. Is to me more. I apologize whoever wrote that, but a lot of the other comments here, suggestions, are that I've taken too much of their time with this quiz. I think that I've reached the maximum amount of memeing that I possibly could without going overboard. The next question is no, and the next response is no, since I was being very abrasive asking for their help. The next response is just letting the world know that Reagan is best boy, and anyone who thinks otherwise is wrong. And he's letting people know that he doesn't make the rules, that they don't make the rules, excuse me. Alright. I don't really have a response to that when it's 1:22 in the morning. I really need to get to bed soon. Next person, Lord Psycho Helmet and plus himself should be a thing next year. And also, they say, why can't we be in multiple cults? Yeah, that's a good question, and that would actually be a good answer to the variety problem. Next year. That person's smart. Alright then. Next year needs more Reagan. I agree with you. I'll look for good Reagan fan art, and I'll actually get permission from some people who made good Reagan fan art. Next person said that I'm all good. Oh, thank you, person. Thank you, person, for saying I'm all good. After that, said that that this quiz is a bit too long with all of these characters, and that they don't remember all the names. Yeah. Next year there will be far fewer names. Next person asked for more jokes once again. Oh, the next person. This was one of my favorite responses that I got midway through the quiz. I used it to advertise it. So thank you for this. I almost stopped doing the survey because of the cringe.
10 out of 10. Thank you for that. People who enjoy cringe. It's an interesting feeling. I think I enjoy cringe too. Please no spoilers next time. I'm an anime-only watcher, and now I know XX. Yeah, I'm very sorry about that. Hindsight's 2020. Next year, though, it wouldn't be a problem to include it, but also next year it won't be an important question. Next question is, why were the only options in the best character line of questions minor characters? I guess this person just didn't notice that there were 2 sets of questions for best boy and best girl. Seriously, the offer for you to be a mod is still on the table. I am actually going to be accepting that shortly. Next person says dude. I get that a lot. Dude can mean a lot of things. And he doesn't capitalize it, and there's the dude, since dude is genderless, the dude here doesn't capitalize it. The dude has no punctuation, there's no capitalization, there's no way of telling what dude means here. Dude, please. What does dude mean? Is this a good dude? Is this a bad dude? Anyway, no and no to both of the questions I asked. The next person says, not a question, but I'd like to thank you for making this poll. I wish you'd have a great day. Oh, in that case, you're a welcome person. Have a lovely day. Next person asks, are you autistic? Good guess. Yes, I am. What's it called? The something spectrum disorder. I forget the name of it. It's late at night. It's interesting. The more I talk to people, the more easy it is for them to guess. Anyway. Add Tome plus Tsubome to the ship list, you coward. Good questions, by the way. I'm not sure why that makes me a coward. I think it's pretty brave of me to put Reagan and Love up there. But, alright. They'll definitely be there next year. I laughed a lot. Thanks, dude. You're welcome, dude. Why did I do this? I have a physics report to do. I hope you have good rapport with your physics. They spelled it R-A-P-P-O-R-T. Best of luck. Like I said before, you can be in college. It just depends on your major. I hope that you did well. Best of luck. Too much stuff for one questionnaire. Too many characters whose names everyone has forgotten. Too many weird jokes. Next person says the N-word for people of African descent, which, like dude, can have a lot of connotations. A lot of connotations there. Next person said that they had a good time. You're welcome. The next person says you have too many choices. No one will care about among the funny ones. Yes, I understand. Next year there will be fewer. Next person says very entertaining. If you want, perhaps add a question on least favorite arcs. Oh yeah, I forgot that they asked this before. I will definitely do that next year. Ask your thoughts on the ending. Yeah, next year. And in terms of shipping, you don't think there's a lot of romantic chemistry, if not between most characters coming from a Fujoshi? Yeah, I agree. I only see one real ship in the series myself, but there's a lot of shipping that goes on here. I've seen Reagan and Serizawa. I've seen Richo, my own ship. I've seen a lot of ships. It exists, so and people take ships seriously, so. Next person asks, how much time did you spend on all of those ships? I forget. I think 5 hours? No, that was for the survey in its entirety. So, and I think that maybe 2 of those hours were spent on ships. Next person says, please no jokes. This took so long. Kill myself. Or, oh, darn it. I forgot. I was going to tell a joke. I forgot. Oh, well. No need to split main characters from supporting characters, especially when I need to open the wiki to know who the hell those people are. Understood. Well, then those people would never get a spotlight. and it's important to know who to include and who not to include. Now that we know who the real important supporting characters that people love are, maybe next year we'd be able to mix them all together with the main characters. The next thing they say is making only the 18-year-old characters and older available on the waifu correspondent poll was a really not smart decision, considering that 95% of the characters in Mobsec 100 are under 18. And you expect me to choose some random girl that I don't care about as my waifu? This is dumb. Honestly, what were you thinking? Wait, that's not true. You were trying to be like, you shouldn't sexualize characters that are under 18. So I have it a pull option to begin with. And I went over that in depth. I don't think that it's about sexuality, it's just you literally cannot marry someone that's under 18. I included Mob Reagan as a ship, and I included Best Girl, and you can say it's not sexual. Well, maybe it isn't sexual. Some people see it as just an appreciation thing, but I have no problem with lolicons, shotacons, anything of that sort, but it's just literally impossible to marry someone that is under 18. That wasn't what I was thinking. I went over that already. Anyway, next person is so pissed at himself that he answered all of those stupid questions. Gonna be much smaller next year. Next person says, please let me marry Tsubomi. It's not up to me, it's up to the law. Next person says, yes. And then proceeds to not give me any feedback. Nice joke. If I were less tired, I would laugh. Next person just says that it's a nice smiling, gives me a smiley face. A nice survey and gives me a smiley face. Have a nice day, thank you very much for the compliment. Next person says, tell me what you think about me. I don't know who you are. I think it's interesting that you gave me this as an order rather than a question. So you have faith in your power to control me, and I appreciate that as a character trait. Usually I'm very attracted to people who have that power to say, do this. I can't be attracted to you, of course, because I know absolutely nothing about you other than you've asked me to do this. There's no name associated with this. But there, I've answered your request. Anyway, too many names to remember, lol. If Bruce Willis would shave his head bald, would he be the best Saitama ever? Or Saitama ever. Bruce Willis. No. And I would go more into detail. If you're watching this, please type me something and I will respond more in depth. But right now I'm tired. Next person. So many ships. But other than that, nice work. Smiley face. Yes, I understand. Next person. Mob is my waifu. What country do you live in? Next question. Your answers are too long. There are too many choices. Exclamation point. Oh, I think I know who that is. I think I helped them fill this out. Anyway, that is everything. I hope you all have a lovely evening. And for the 30% of you who are part of that cult, all hail Lord Psycho Helmet.